Hey, everybody. Welcome to this Signal Hour. It is so good to be back with you. And what a big week we've had. Unbelievable what has been going on. And so let's get right to it. Today, we are going to be discussing, probably this. First, the financial crisis, then the economic crisis. We have to talk about it. Obviously, it's been on a lot of people's minds. This is something I track over and over again at Peak Prosperity. And Evie will be with us shortly. So as everybody's sort of piling in here for this live performance, we're going to start here. Now, this is a live show. So first thing, we're watching the comments as best we can. So if you have a good comment, something we feel that catches the attention of us and captures the moment, we'll bring it up. This is the Signal Hour, where I'm trying to find the signal within the signal. There is so much going on right now, so much going on in the world, that it's getting harder and harder to figure out what is the true signal. What do we need to know? And as you can tell, it's very obvious that the world is undergoing massive changes. And some of these changes aren't going to be awesome for everybody. They just can't be. Look, we had in the United States a spendthrift economy. We borrowed money we didn't have to spend on things we didn't need. And so here we are. Welcome, Evie. Hey, can you just hit that light switch right to your left there? Yeah, that one's going to be good for you. Perfect. Thanks. All right. Evie has joined us in the studio. And as soon as she gets settled, I'll bring her into the conversation. Hello, love.
Hello.
She's right over there. Yeah, right there.
I'm coming.
All right. So let's start here. The S&P 500, it's down to it's got a 19% decline from its recent peaks back there in February of this year. And that 19% decline takes us back to year ago levels. Now, you would think, talking to some people, that this is the biggest crisis ever. I've seen people use hyperbolic headlines like worse than the 1929 crash. Like, not yet. This would be what we would call a normal correction edging into bear market. It actually just takes us back to where we were a year ago. That's not a huge deal. In fact, once you understand the degree to which the Federal Reserve has been a serial bubble blowing organization and has just been making sure asset prices like stocks go up and to the right at the expense of everybody else. And boomers have been the recipients of the largesse, and the younger generations have been just pretty well screwed over. And that's both a statement of observation and a little bit of an indictment. So this is where it's stood for a while. And now we have to wonder, well, look, is the Fed going to step back? Are they not going to rescue the market this time? They're not a political organization. It's just 95% of the Fed staffers donated to Democrats last cycle. It's not a political organization, but you know that the Fed steps in if senile Biden was still president somehow, or it was Kamala, they would be stepping in to offer reassuring platitudes and words and things like that to help the market do the right thing, which is go up and to the right. In the Fed's mind, markets always go up and to the right. There's no such thing as a correction. They haven't allowed a legitimate recession to transpire in years, right? They took the one that was supposed to happen in 2020 and jammed $5 trillion up its rear end. They've done everything they can to limit the recessions as if that was their job. It's not their job. Of course, when the Fed does these things, surprise, what they actually end up doing is stuffing more and more money into the wealthiest pockets in the land, because that's all they can really do. The Fed prints money out of thin air, puts it in the markets to supply liquidity. And wouldn't you know it, there's a lot of well-connected insiders at the front of that trough, vacuuming off most of those dollars before they ever hit the real economy. And next thing you know, you see these crazy wealth gap charts that are outrageously large. And the reason that's important, even Plutarch 2,500 years ago nailed it when he said the oldest and most fatal ailment of all republics is a gap between the rich and the poor. That's because a stupid top-heavy gap between the rich and the poor leads to a very unstable configuration, and those societies tend not to last. That's why he called it a fatal ailment, not a troublesome disease, not a cough that keeps you up a little late at night, a fatal ailment. So the Fed has been the architect of this fatal ailment. They're doing everything they can to perpetuate that. And now that we're here, I'm not sure they can do much more. And so this is what you see. Stocks are for show, but bonds are for dough. Something is breaking in the bond markets right now. We're going to have to touch on that as well, just a little bit. Hello, Evie.
Good afternoon. Good to be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, this really does feel like the way the Fed has architected all of this stuff. It honestly, it feels like generational warfare. Sort of banksters. You know how they sort of say, they try and phrase it as if it's the rich against everybody else. Like there's this dialectic. It's these against everybody.
Right.
But actually, there's a whole group of people on the side who just want a free lunch. There's the producers, and then there are the freeloaders. And I feel like the Fed has really been there for capital over labor, labor being the people who have to get up at 4 a.m. and work and pay bills.
Right.
They've been there anytime the freeloaders need more money so they can continue their USAID programs, or, oh no, there's a big bank might go out of business because they screwed up. And they would have to go out of business like any other business. Oh no, they need protecting. So I'm going to submit the Fed hasn't been pitting rich against the poor. They've been absolutely there 100% of the time for people who earn money without doing any work, and freeloaders who feast off of free money without really performing any valuable service for our society.
The ticks. They're there for the bloated ticks
the
of the
ticks on the
economy.
hound.
No, it's true. I think you're right. And unfortunately, there are a lot in the older generation that have just been accustomed, like, or indoctrinated into the norm that, you know, this is what a portfolio looks like. This is how it's supposed to perform, et cetera. And so you get into these ruts where you'd have to re-educate an entire generation.
I don't know if you can re-educate because this was their lived experience, right? So the lived experience of the boomer class was this: for 40 years, interest rates went down. And when interest rates are falling, not just in a straight line, but I mean, it wiggled, but you could draw a straight line through those wiggles. When you grow up in an environment and you perform your investing miracles, like in real estate or bonds or stocks, during a time when interest rates are falling, that means bond prices are going up. So if you were in bonds, you had a tailwind the whole way. If you were in real estate and interest rates are falling, you had a tailwind the whole way. If you were in stocks and interest rates were falling, you had a tailwind the whole way. And so remember, Evie, we were at this local meeting and there were these two boomers in there and they'd owned real estate, and their position was, well, I don't understand why kids today don't just do what we did.
Right. They just don't work very hard. You just got to get out there and make it happen.
Just do what we did. It's like, dude, you were there when oxygen was being pumped into the caverns.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And now we're all stuck in this cavern and there's like the oxygen's going away. And you're like, why don't you just take deep breaths like I did? Like,
yeah,
it is really.
It's the wrong advice for where we are at this point in history.
Well, I find it annoying because it just lacks context. It's not really difficult context to have. It's like, look, if you grow up at a time when you have relative advantages, let's say you're like the people who are in Saudi Arabia today are going to be totally different from the people who are there in 100 years after all the oil's gone.
Right.
But in 100 years, should they be saying, I don't understand. Why don't you just like buy Porsches and Learjets like I did?
Right.
You know, because the oil's gone.
Yeah.
It's not having gratitude and awareness of the circumstances that made you lucky, gave you beneficial advantages, which I think obligates you to share those when things get lean. Isn't that what a society does? Share in the abundance and then share during the lean times. Isn't that? No, I feel like the boomers just like reeled up the drawbridge over the moat and said, good luck. You know?
I know. It's interesting, whatever the situation was, you know, in terms of the influence that the world had on the boomers to make that kind of decision, right?
Yep.
That not enough place, that scarcity place that our parents came from. What is that? What was that? Was it because of the war that they'd seen? Was it because of hearing horrible stories about what the Great Depression was like? Like, I always wonder about that and why that generation decided to be sort of, I don't know, just unaware of the benefits that they had been born into. And yeah.
By the way, we're going to have to get straight to the objections. Evie, how do we answer this?
What? All right, this is embarrassing when you talk about this and pull these up. Don't do that.
Well,
how are you going to answer that?
Oh, well, this would be the subject of a whole different show. There's a lot more than meets the eye. I'm a very well-rounded individual. And so if you want my dating tips, that's $9.95 a month. Go to chrisdatingtips.com. No, I'm just kidding. But obviously there's more to this story than meets the eye because, yeah, I'm a geek. I love this stuff.
Well, yeah, and we can't really take credit. The universe brought us together for some good reasons.
Okay. So this is the context, and everybody's looking at, oh no, the stock market's selling off a little bit. Look, it happens. It's not the end of the world, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, Dan Edwards. Good to see you here too.
Yay, Dan.
All right, so let's carry on then. So here is my path to crisis. Here's how it works. First, we had ridiculously overpriced stocks. If you want to know more about how overpriced, Paul Kiker and I of Kiker Wealth Management, every week we do a financial university. It's kind of like this, but financially focused. And we've been talking about whether you're looking at U.S. stocks based to price to sales, price to earnings, price to book, which are all measures of expensiveness when they get to certain levels. U.S. stocks had gotten to a level of concentration and overpricedness that cannot happen absent a very coordinated Federal Reserve pumping program. So overpriced stocks always correct. Big deal. Corrections happen. No biggie. This isn't a correction. Overpriced stocks can then sometimes morph into what we're in right now, 2008 and 9, same thing, which is what's called a liquidity crisis. And liquidity simply means how much cash is sloshing around from A to B. Consider like a CD, that's like kind of frozen money in your bank account, but money that's moving, off to your utility bills, and the utility company pays their power suppliers, et cetera. That's money that's in motion. That's the liquidity in the system. So we have liquidity piping for stocks, for bonds, for transactions, you name it. Well, when the liquidity starts to dry up, that's when everything gets sold because all these players out there are leveraged. They've borrowed to participate in the market. And you get a liquidity crisis. It goes on long enough and it becomes a solvency crisis. That means somebody gets in trouble, goes belly up. Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers. We are on our way to a solvency crisis. Question is, does it get there? And if your solvency crisis goes on far enough, you end up in what's called a systemic crisis. That's where the plumbing freezes up and things don't work anymore. And that's a very bad situation. So if we ever get to that solvency crisis, what that means is big banks go out of business. They're go into receivership. Mm-hmm. They can't meet any of their obligations. We don't know how much they owe. Oh no, we have to bring the FDIC in. If it's a brokerage, it's SIPC. Right. Legal teams get involved.
Nobody trusts anybody.
And then loans aren't made. Mm-hmm. And we live in a situation where most businesses, especially small, medium-sized businesses, they need working capital, right? To meet payroll, to pay for imported goods. Like it's all in flight. And so when you get a solvency crisis, that all freezes and things break down quickly from there.
Yeah. You can see it now. People are just getting scared, and that fear promotes behavior that then causes more fear. And it's just this big snowball.
Yeah. So this is we're somewhere on this path, but we're definitely but somewhere post liquidity. We're in the midst of a liquidity crisis, and we're somewhere maybe heading towards the solvency crisis. That's where we're getting. So is this about tariffs? That's what I wanted to talk about today, because a lot of people ask the question. Is it? Well,
good question.
Well,
the importer pays the tariffs.
Well, this was a big question came out. A lot of people said, who pays the tariffs? And I saw some people said it's the exporter. China pays the tariffs. No, the consumer pays the tariffs ultimately in higher prices. No, it's who is it? So we're going to answer that right here. So let's start with this.
So Spencer says, I can't say his last name.
Hakimian.
So how does this work? A small business that orders $100,000 a week from their Chinese factory on auto refill gets a $104,000 invoice from U.S. Customs to release their inventory, or it gets dumped into the East River. How is this actually going to work? Small businesses have zero liquidity to pay these extortion fees. Layoffs immediately?
So it's a question. So Spencer's asking the obvious question here. And I believe he already knows the answer, but he was trying to get the conversation going. And he did. And he teased out a really cool set of responses that we're going to go into next.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer is the importer pays the tariffs. So your goods land on the docks and customs is there to say, oh, did you just import? Now they've just put 104% tariffs on. So if you had $100,000 shipment come in, you owe your Chinese gal, $100,000 for that. And U.S. Customs needs $104,000.
Ouch.
For that. Okay.
Yep.
So Knox Harrington is in the biz and says, here.
If we don't pay whatever customs says is owed when it is owed, the consequences are close up shop severe. We are meeting with our bank this week to request a line increase so we have the liquidity to cover us until large price increases kick in. Many businesses will sink.
Okay, now hang on. So he says until large price increases kick in. This is a subtlety. It's really important to get here. I think everybody needs to know this is why we're going to this level of detail. But here's the deal. Customs says you owe us $104,000 on that $100,000 import. You got to pay it right now. And if you don't, you got to close up shop. Like that's it. So they need liquidity to cover that because they might have had a whole thing tuned to. I import $100,000 of stuff. I send it out to Target or Walmart or whoever my next in line is.
Right.
And then
make some money back plus a little.
And then they have net plus 30 or net plus 60 terms. And so I have to wait for that to come back. But if all of a sudden I have to do that, plus it's now increased in price by more than 100%, I have to float that, right?
Yes.
Until my net plus 60, 90 comes in or whatever the terms are.
Right.
So it creates a liquidity crisis, right? In essence, for this small business. Okay, that's where we're at.
Yes. He goes on to say our monthly duty payments prior to Trump's first terms were around $30,000 to $50,000 a month. Currently, they are at around $250,000 to $400,000 a month and will likely jump over to $600,000 by the summer. And this is with us moving 75% of our sourcing away from China, India, and Thailand in recent years. So sounds like they're trying to do more business.
Well, of course they are. This is what
here at home.
You show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. People are going to try and scurry their suppliers, obviously, to a place where they can get a better deal just based on the tariffs alone.
Right.
Now, tariffs exist. They've existed all the time. They've been there. You see, they were $30,000 to $50,000 a month. Now they're increasing them. So the tariffs are going to go up to something more. Okay. But it's the pace of change that gets you, not the actual change itself.
Right. Like this could get sorted out, but it's when everybody's in this crisis and everybody's needing more money to cover their expenses, things get a little hinky.
Well, it's going to burn up on more than a few of them. So here's where it gets, I think, real. Spencer, so are you doomed?
And Knox says, cash flow, a major concern. We will raise prices as needed, but the major retail customer we work with will require a 60 to 90-day wait time before price increases are implemented. And of course, even if everyone else is doing it, any price adjustment comes with risk of losing the account.
So it turns out that if you're a big retailer, you don't just say, oh, well, we'll just double prices tonight and click some buttons. They have contractually, they have a thing that says, hey, if you're supplying us, we have a way that we have to handle price increases because it's delicate with our customers. You have to market it. You have to figure out how you're going to talk about it. You got to figure out what your price margins are. So it's probably got to loop through marketing, finance, all that, right? You don't just go, oh, they're higher.
Right.
So they have a 60 to 90-day window that they implement that now Knox Harrington and he's in the middle of that, right?
Right.
Customs says you owe us an extra 104. His big retailer's like, I need 90 days.
You're stuck.
And so Spencer said, holy shite.
To which Knox replies, generally, you are given 10 days from vessel or container arrival at port until duties have to be paid. As an importer with a decades-long track record, we are approved for next month's schedule, meaning that everything that hits port in April is due in one big bill during the third week of May.
Right. So here's an importer. Knox has got decades of experience, so I'm assuming knows what he's talking about. This all sounds legit to me. Has that ring of truth. So, but even them, 30 days. So they have a 30-day window that they're going to have to kick in to meet this. And so now they need liquidity. Okay. So here's where it gets interesting. During a liquidity crisis, banks start to reel in their activity. They start to get a little concerned. Like, it's not when you're in the midst of the boom times, you just call your banker up, you probably get it. No big deal.
Right. They just approve it, like stamp it. Don't even look at it twice.
Yeah, not that easy. But when things are tight, the bank guy you used to talk with, his boss is saying, hey, keep it on the low. We don't want to, we need to reduce our exposure right now. So you're going to cross every T, dot every I. Now we're going to need 90 new pages of loan agreements, and your lawyers are going to have to go over it. Just everything sort of gums up a little.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
You can even find a bank that's willing to make a loan under those terms, because many of them just retrench and settle down and freeze up.
That doesn't feel fair.
It doesn't feel fair.
That doesn't feel fair.
It's not fair.
No, but I mean, I just remember from the 2008, all the various feelings I had about what banks were and were not doing. It's frustrating because they were given public funds to sort of not have things get gummed up.
Of course.
And they still weren't loaning money. But anyway.
Yeah.
Liquidity crisis equals small businesses go bye-bye, not good for the mom and pops.
Yep.
That's what John Hamlet has to say.
Indeed. And something that I just wrote about for my subscribers at Peak Prosperity, I do lots of content there. And in this environment, very quickly, a lot of people are going to get burned if we get past a liquidity and solvency crisis, mostly because they don't see it coming, mostly because they don't know what's happening. They don't have the context. People who don't know what's about to happen are about to get burned. I mean, financially. And I want that to not happen. So if we notice, like here, CJ is noting that oil is at $57 a barrel, right? And that seems like a good thing. And let me see, somebody else said, Joe said, well, hopefully then gas prices will drop under $4 soon. They've been under 4. In fact, they're under 3 on our side of the camp over here. But here's the thing. That's not a good thing, because if you understand how much it costs our oil producers to produce, I guarantee you right now, rigs are getting stacked in the Permian, in the Haynesville, in the Barnett. People are getting laid off today, and this is going to accelerate the longer oil stays under $60 a barrel, especially with Trump saying, yay, oil's under 60 a barrel, when the oil execs just met with him and said anything under 80, and this gets really tough for us. They were as clear as could be. They've got an energy secretary in Chris Wright, who is one of them, who they now realize maybe isn't one of them anymore. We don't know what's happening, but I will guarantee you these oil prices are destructive for the American oil business, because we don't have cheap oil anymore. There's no cheap oil to drill. It's all expensive.
Yeah.
So this is going to hurt.
It's just going to get more expensive from here.
Well, it's the classic thing. Oil prices drop too low. You have a bust. And listen, remember watching Land Band? They're always sort of like, woo, these are boom times, but the bust times are coming. Oil is just a long series of booms and busts. It's the biz. But right now, these are bust prices.
Right. Yeah.
And during a bust, things get crazy. People get laid off. It happens. So this isn't really something to cheer. What would be worthy of cheering is having proper balance between producers and consumers.
Correct.
So that we didn't have 97% of all trades on the COMEX settled by speculators. They neither have any interest in producing any oil or buying any oil. They never take delivery, but they trade it. So they don't really care. So when they get caught in a liquidity crisis, they're like, I need cash. So they just sell their oil holdings. And that drives the price way below what the producers need. Whereas if you had just producers and consumers coming together, refiners and oil patch people, they would have a price that would work for both of them.
Yeah. Why don't we do it that way?
Because we're stupid.
Okay.
Because we're stupid.
Of course.
Yeah. So at any rate.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah. Do you like that? Do you like how it starts? Dear Boomers?
Dear Boomers.
So this is right in terms of what we were just talking about. So let's hit it.
I heard your retirement funds have taken a bit of a hit.
Wait. Where's my little violin?
I would like to offer some advice. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Hard work pays off. Stop buying so much avocado toast and fancy lattes. Get an entry-level job to get your foot in the door. Live within your means. Cut out all the fancy stuff. Save every penny. Put it in a savings account and watch it grow. Quit wasting money on all those subscription services. Just walk into your boss's office and ask for a raise. Pack a lunch. You don't need to eat out. Put $20 a week in a jar. You'll be surprised how fast it adds up. Hope this helps. Yours sincerely, each following generation that you've effed over.
I think they're channeling for a lot of people there. Look, 184,000 hearts, which is more than Elon gets on many of his tweets. 10.6 million views. Of course it did. It did. It did.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, people are going to be looking to point fingers wherever they can too. I mean, this is just what happens when there's something stressful going on. It's just human nature to want to find out whose fault it is,
Yep.
Which doesn't really change that much in terms of what we have to do about it. It might make us feel better for a minute, but what are we going to do? Go extract it back from the boomers? I mean, it's just,
well,
that ship has sailed.
Thank you for the super chat, random dude. We'll get some nice heirloom tomatoes. Bulgarian pink, never had those.
Oh, we haven't tried those. I'm growing a bunch though right now in our.
Yeah.
We started a bunch of tomatoes and other things, so. That's funny. Thanks, random dude.
So Matt K, yes. So this raises something very interesting here, which is that OPEC did announce production increases, and also I have to wonder if China. Look, we're caught in a huge tiff with China right now. So part of this could be, if I was China, one of the things I'd want to do besides selling treasuries, selling US dollars, which both seem to be happening, I'd also be not importing as much oil. So I'd be releasing from my own SPR, not telling anybody, just importing less. So there's more oil on the market. So the price of oil goes down. Now the United States, trust me, these oil prices are destructive to one of the most dynamic, large, and profitable industries that we had. At this level, it's not profitable as much or even at all. And so if I'm China, I'm trying to hurt the US. Low oil prices hurt the US. And you're going to read all these articles out there saying, oh, this really hurts Russia. Yeah, actually hurts us more. We produce more oil than Russia, so it hurts us more. Oh, but it'll hurt them relatively more. Probably not. Be my guess at any rate.
So from your perspective, Chris, in terms of the tariffs, like, do you feel like is this a political chess move? Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around why now. And I mean, it just seems like a big thing to make a stand on at a tricky moment anyhow. What do you think is really going through Trump's mind?
Well, this is, I haven't got a full thought on it yet. So here we see Scott Bessent, who I really like. He speaks well, and he obviously has a lot of historical basis. He's the new Treasury Secretary. And he's saying, I'm hesitating because I have all of this stuff, but it's actually in the presentation I'm going to do with Paul, where some quotes from him. But
oh, nice.
Quoting from his quotes, so it's hearsay.
So tune in later.
What he says is, look, he was sitting down with Tucker Carlson. He said, we were on the wrong track.
Right.
And we had to correct that. And we didn't just get on the wrong track under Biden. This is kind of starting with Bill Clinton, with NAFTA. And over time, we'd fallen into these various artifices and delusions, which were, well, we're an importing country and China is the manufacturing country. And we fell into what Luke Groman had correctly identified on his Tucker interview as the Dutch disease, meaning because we were just exporting dollars like crazy, we had a whole set of generations of people who didn't want to do hard work, take real risk, and start businesses. You have to hire people, fire them, manage inventory. Sometimes stuff doesn't go your way. There's liability.
Yep.
Oh, I'll just make 10 times that amount of money going to Wall Street, making money with money. It's called financialization, aka Dutch disease. Prior to that, Spanish disease. Every country that's just imported a lot of gold and silver goes, woo, we're rich. And then within a generation or two, the whole thing falls apart. Because your youngest, best, and brightest learn the arts of speculation, not the arts of manufacturing.
Right.
You lose the plot.
Right.
You get confused. You think money is wealth.
Right.
And it's not. Even if it was gold or silver, it was just,
money's not real.
The most astonishing inflation in history was in Spain after they brought these big, huge ships of gold back after plundering it from the Aztecs and sailed it into they're like, we're rich. And then all it did was make the price of everything go up. And it's like, you're not rich. It's just money. Money isn't real. It's a construct. It's an idea. It's a medium of exchange. So Dutch disease is you let your money begin to take over your ethos and you lose the plot. The plot is raise healthy children who are well-rounded, have a diverse set of skills, and don't ever become 100% dependent on another country for anything.
Amen. And even as a household, right? Depending on other people for your food, for your sustenance, it's all sort of leads to that dangerous place of losing those skills yourself.
Yep.
And having to rely on someone else makes you vulnerable. Not that we don't need each other, because we do, but it's true.
But this is a possibility here. Ken R is echoing the Great Reset mantra.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what's going on. Please. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I didn't see that you had grabbed it. Ken says the tariffs seem like a variation on the quote, first by inflation, then by deflation. The banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property.
Yeah, that's I think that's a is that a Jackson quote? Andrew Jackson? I think so. Could be. Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, first by inflation, then deflation. So that's what the banks do. There's a whole trick. They extend loans, they inflate everything, and then they retract those loans, and you lost your farm. And so you find out you get deprived of all your property. That's always been the game. That has always been the game through all of history, is for the people who don't want to work hard to figure out some fancy way legally to deprive you of all your hard work and property. That's been the scam all along.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so what's fascinating about this is that this is happening in real time, also at light speed. It's unfolding very quickly, and we have information now. So people can sort of figure out what just happened, if they want to.
That's true. It's going to be a bitter pill, though, for the younger people.
Of course it is.
And this is going to be ugly. They don't have skills. They have grown up having really cushy lives and feeling entitled, myself included, right?
Well, can we talk about that entitlement? What about Nick Gillespie here?
Wow. He says, I'm 61 and over the past 2 months, my 401k has lost 25% of its value. I'm always happy to contribute to the greater good, but can someone please explain to me how this helps anyone? To which you said, this is on you. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, if you're 61 and you just lost 25% when the market was down less than that, you are doing it wrong. You should be, at that age, you should be, approaching safety and all of that.
Yeah.
So this was
what would you suggest for Nick Gillespie?
Well, you work with somebody who understands, how to run a risk managed portfolio. The people we work with are not down anywhere close to the market amounts, right?
Oh, Paul Kiker.
Yep. And second of all, you have to really play that's not investing, that's speculating. When you're down more than the market,
right,
you're speculating. Even if you're 100% in the market, you shouldn't be down more than the market.
Right.
And by the way, you ought to probably have some in bonds anyway. So
sure.
Or this is something that we covered extensively. Like, it's for somebody like this to go, what happened? Well, what happened was he wasn't paying attention. He was being a clue bag. And he's like, I think that's always going to go up and to the right. I can just close my eyes. Starting in January of this past year, Paul and I, we were saying, look how expensive these markets are. What happens to expensive markets? Oh, they always underperform. They disappoint. Over the next 10 years, your expected return from these markets at the prices they were in January, February was zero. For 10 years, you should expect zero. But you should be prepared for that zero to be a 50% down and 100% to get back to even over that 10 years.
Ooh.
A lot of volatility. So that's the expected return. So when you see markets that are stupid expensive, the first thing you do is you got to say, where do I want my money and what else am I going to do?
Right.
And this guy, he wasn't saying any of that. This guy was just like, what happened to my money? By the way, Phoenix Ammunition, these guys make ammunition, commented to that.
Oh, good. He said, you're 61 and you still have all your money invested in high to medium risk funds. You should have been shifting to a much safer portfolio, but like most boomers, you're greedy and you think 20% returns every year are something you're entitled to.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah, right?
He's right on.
I love it when Twitter, I'm never deleting this app because you can go on Twitter and some guy like Nick Gillespie says, I'm 61, I lost 25%. This doesn't seem right. And you got a guy who manufactures ammunition giving you portfolio lessons. I love it.
Something's off.
Or, Phoenix is just an average grounded person who lives in reality. And Nick was just somebody who got caught off in the world of abstractions. Just fell for the gimmick. The gimmick was the Fed bailed, but we should have been ready for them not to bail out because, again, 95% of all Fed staffers donated to Democrats last cycle. So the Fed is a political machine. What do you and I know about these TDS people?
Oh,
they don't care.
They don't care what happens to you. They're don't have your good. They don't have your anything about your future wealth or health or anything in mind. They do not care about you.
They not only, it's more than indifference. I agree with you, but I think it goes further. I think they actively are cheering on the destruction. They don't want you to get schooled. They don't want you to go, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, Elon's a bad guy. They want you to lose your job. They want to see you suffer. They would like to see some charges leveled against you by the system because process is punishment for these people.
Right. Some pain.
Yeah, a lot of pain. No, I've seen these people cheering on people with actual who've died or have had disease or something. Like, you remember how excited they were with that whole thing, which is like, oh, this poor person, their last deathbed words in the hospital were, I wish I'd gotten a vaccine.
Oh, I remember that.
Remember how evil that was?
I forgot.
Yeah. I bet you have better context on that now. Just how evil that was.
All the time, too. Like, really? That was that person's last sentiment, last message to the world? Yeah,
that was some pharma nonsense. I don't believe anybody ever said any of that. But watching the people cheer it underneath that, like, oh, yeah, I bet they do regret not getting the vaccine.
Right.
Obviously, they're strangely quiet on that whole thing because nobody is saying, I regret not getting the vaccine today.
Right. So
nobody.
Question about the financial world.
Yeah.
To go back to that. Is it true, sort of like a lot of people that are managing the money these days, the people in Wall Street, haven't really seen, like their entire professional lives have been with the market going up and to the right. They don't even know what a downturn looks like and what to expect and really how to hedge against that because in their mind, it's not even a possibility. Is that part of what's happening too? I mean, it obviously does really matter who you choose as a financial advisor because if it's somebody that has their head in the sand, you're going down with them.
If your financial advisor was not, I'm going to say, there with 5 years under their belt, actively managing money, not like they got started in 2008, but they had been there, say, 2003.
Okay.
So that they were a little bit mature and got to live through that experience. If they came on anywhere 2009 afterwards, they do not know what's coming. They haven't experienced it.
Right.
That's what totally. We've all heard about this, right? Like, oh, my grandma never quite got over the Great Depression. That was my grandmother's formative experience, right to the end. Like when she was still alive in the early 2000s, she was still, I kid you not, cutting the labels off of soup cans when they still had them, peeling them off, and writing her grocery lists on the back, saving the strings off a roast. I don't know what for,
Yep.
To knit parachute cord. I don't know what the plan was, but
no, it's true. When if you don't go through it, you just really can't anticipate what's going to happen.
So, which makes this all the harder for me to stomach, which is somebody who was there, obviously an old guy who's been there, was there through the whole thing. Chuck Schumer never fails to disappoint in his ability to disappoint.
Senator, what's your opinion of the violence against Tesla, their products? What are your thoughts on that? Do you denounce the violence against Tesla products and dealerships and cars in the streets?
I can't talk about Tesla, but Elon Musk is a disaster for America, and America knows it. Look at Wisconsin.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, thank you. So he won't denounce the violence that's afoot, right? And any senator, I think, has to denounce violence. You have to. It's just like it's axiomatic. It's just something you have to do. So he won't denounce the violence against Teslas and all that. But he's like, but look at what Elon's doing. Like, well, what's Elon doing? All Elon is doing is trying to save us money. But I think Chuck is channeling for boomers when he's like, Elon is going to ruin our ability to steal from the common folk.
That's what the translation is.
I think so.
What is he why is he I mean, he's talking about Wisconsin, but why? Wisconsin in particular.
We'll get to Wisconsin in just a bit because
Okay.
boy, I've got some stuff on Wisconsin first. But listen to this again.
I
This
can't
is
talk about
awful.
Tesla, but Elon Musk is a disaster for America, and America knows it. Look at Wisconsin.
So Elon put money into the Wisconsin elections. He didn't even lean on, which remember this was because they had a Supreme Court
Oh, yeah.
justice and there was
That's
a
right.
Republican and Democrat. So he just put money into the election saying, let's get the vote out.
I remember that.
He was a disaster. Just look at Wisconsin. Because Wisconsin ended up with a Democrat Supreme Court that's now very liberal. Is that why he's a disaster for America? I don't know. Listen, I don't want to parse this for intelligence because there's none to be had here.
No.
Chuck, I think, is just quintessential boomer. He's angry. He's bitter. He has no
entitled.
context. He's a pull up the moat drawbridge so nobody else can get across kind of guy. That's how I see him.
Yep.
So.
Not a good human.
Just thought we'd bring that up.
In my judgment.
All right. Speaking of which, let's get to Wisconsin real quick because we have to talk about our democracy, which again, remember, this is our possessive the hour, meaning our democracy.
Mine, not yours.
Not the collective democracy, obviously. So we're going to talk about that. Our democracy. So remember, Evie, we did this. We talked about we played this last time, but I think this is worth repeating and going through here. This is the winner of the Wisconsin. Susan Crawford wins this, but just look at the expression and listen for the our democracy.
So today, Wisconsinites fended off an unprecedented attack on our democracy.
Fended off an unprecedented attack on our democracy.
That's right. Our fair elections and our Supreme Court. And
our fair elections.
What even is that? I've never heard of one.
That's interesting because I just came across something which is so it turns out there's this article which I'll have you read in just a second, which is Milwaukee officials in Wisconsin blocked windows preventing observers from they couldn't watch the block. These are pictures. So let me get my little thing out. While they were counting these things that gave this big swing to that lady for our democracy, they put up frosted windows so people couldn't see into their secret rooms where they were counting ballots. They had forbidden areas with no windows. They had this window had like boxes in front of it with the shades drawn. This one, they stacked mail crates in front of the window so nobody could see through. This one, they had little tiny skinny windows and they did all the counting work over to the corner here. And then they had frosted windows. So that's
not sketchy.
Not sketchy at all. So what do we got here? I think just the parts in yellow.
Sure. Milwaukee officials blocked windows, preventing observers from seeing them process ballots is the title of our article. And it says, well, votes streamed in during last week's Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Workers in Milwaukee handled ballots in secret back rooms forbidden to observers, according to multiple sources. One of these rooms also allegedly stored vast numbers of blank ballots.
Okay, hold on. You can't do this. You can't do this legally, but even if you did it illegally, it should immediately invalidate the results. 100% full stop. If you live in a functioning democracy that isn't our democracy. So when she's like, our democracy fended off a vicious attack, this is what she's talking about. She's talking about secret back rooms that were forbidden to observers that had vast numbers of blank ballots in them.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Including even, see that next one, it was in white Wisconsin State Rep.
Yeah, let me read that. Wisconsin State Representative Dave Maxey, a Republican, told the Federalist that Milwaukee Elections Director Paulina Gutierrez blocked observers from seeing multiple rooms in the city's central count where workers were processing ballots on election day. According to Maxey, one of these was the quote, secure ballot room, which housed pre-printed blank ballots.
Yeah, blank. They should have put blank around quotes too.
Oh my gosh. The reason I wanted to get into those rooms is, why are you covering the windows? Why did you have mail bins stacked in front of the glass and obscuring people's view? Maxey said, if there's nothing to see, let's be as transparent as a window.
Okay, listen, this is very simple, okay? The rule is if somebody's hiding something, they have something to hide.
That's right.
Full stop. And by the way, you can't hide stuff during an election count.
No.
If you do, I say that election's invalid.
Yeah, you don't get privacy to count that stuff.
No, never. It's just not part of the process.
No.
It never.
The more transparency, the better.
All right, now here's the thing, though.
Wow.
If somebody doesn't go to jail over this, they just allow it to, oh, well, I guess we'll get the next one better. If Trump doesn't lean on this hard, then
it's just going to keep happening.
Then nothing, there are no changes possible.
Yeah.
No change. When something like this happens, people have to be held accountable. They have to go to prison, full stop. And the way you get to those people is very simple. You know how you do it? It's called conduct an investigation. You talk to this Gutierrez person and you lean on them, and then you find out an irregularity and say, oh, Pam, looks like you're facing 20 years and a $3 million fine, unless you can cough up somebody higher up the food chain, in which case we'll cut a deal. How would you like to proceed? And that's what you do. It's not hard, but it has been hard because they haven't allowed it, right? So,
and do you want me to read the last paragraph?
Just that last sentence.
Sure.
That starts Gutierrez.
Gutierrez had allegedly been allowing workers to handle ballots in rooms inaccessible to observers for weeks before the election.
For weeks. Allowing workers to handle ballots in rooms inaccessible to observers for weeks.
Oh my gosh. And plan to continue using these secret rooms on election day. That's gross.
Not gross. It's prima facie evidence of corruption. It happened. This was a stolen election until you can prove otherwise. It's not up to me to prove that something bad happened. As soon as this is happening, you now have to prove to me, not you, but I mean you have to prove to me that it was valid. I don't think that they can't do that.
So what is our recourse here as citizens?
I don't know, but Insurrection Barbie, just the yellow part down there, said, here's my problem with this. Every time Democrats who are in charge of administering elections in blue counties pull stuff like this, it makes every single sane person question the results of the election. And I would like to understand who that benefits. I don't understand that last part. Because we all know who it benefits.
Right.
That seems like a rhetorical softball.
It does. It does. We cannot continue to watch things like this and then see no action afterwards, because while I'm not saying that this would have changed the outcome, what I am saying is that this is against Wisconsin state law. It's shady, and it makes everyone question the legitimacy of the race.
Not just question. I mean, it's just, I'm ready to throw out the results. It's BS.
Yeah.
Full stop BS.
Can we just have what would you do? Just have another election? Do it again?
You'd have to do it again, obviously. But I mean, remember, this is Wisconsin in 2020, right? It's made one of the most famous charts out there which is like
all of a sudden
now a meme, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
You've taught me that. I remember
many
years ago.
We went over the statistics of this is the law of large numbers. These things asymptote. They never do that. it's laughably bad.
The marbles.
Whoops.
Yes.
Right. And by the way, same counties. So they obviously have corruption. They didn't fix it this time. Nobody went to prison. And so we got it again. And that's just how this works.
Great.
So Wisconsin is dirty as all get out. It's just a dirty state. By the way, if you live in Wisconsin, you might want to consider leaving, because it's just going to be like this. And now that once people get in power with dirty power, it's kind of like Lula in Brazil, right? Things just get really bad from there, because the people who get in power in a dirty way are not clean people, but they're there for a reason. They're activists. They are there to destroy what they can, because that's what this totalitarian win at any cost. You don't understand. Cheating is okay because we won. That way we preserved our democracy, because these other people are so bad. Anything I did was rationalized, justified, normalized. Now that I'm here, I have to keep it. I can't let these other people in, because I'll get in trouble. That's my own little personal motivation. But also, they're very bad people. We've already established that. So to prove that, I'm now going to weaponize lawfare against them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fantasy dystopian screenplay? No, it's what happens over and over again with totalitarians. In Brazil, it's happening in Germany right now. It's happening in the UK. It's going to happen in Wisconsin. It's going to happen anywhere you allow these people to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is no bueno.
Yeah.
Look at this. Frosted windows. I'll take frosted flakes in the morning, but I'm not.
That makes me so mad.
Actually, I don't eat frosted anything anymore.
No, you don't.
It's a whole different thing. But anyway, that's where we're at. So speaking of our democracy, Evie, we also had this come in. This was last week, but
I think I saw this.
I think you sent this to me.
By the way, could you go down on the comments just
Oh,
so I
sure.
can see?
See what's coming in.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were stuck there for a second. Whoops. Okay, you're right, Dan. I'll say factual. But on the face of it, it's like, that's it. It's the prima facie evidence. It's on the face of it. This evidence, just all on its own, without having to go any deeper, says, but I'll go with factual too. Yeah, this is so let's listen in on this.
And then you'll notice there's a strange trend here, where how many Social Security numbers were issued. Do you want to?
So this is a little hard to see for people, a little hard to see because of the size of this. But so let me just say, these are years. And so I think it's 2009, 18, 19, 20, 21. I think they'll tell this says new non-citizen Social Security numbers issued. So this is one of the Doge guys. He's been digging around in the Social Security Administration database, found non-citizen Social Security numbers have been issued. And we're looking at different years, and you can see a huge surge in them coming up there.
Yeah, so let me tell you what happened here. We started at the top of the system.
You want to talk about a lot of it.
We started at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all the fraud was. And there's a lot of great people there that showed us really a lot of waste. And so that came up with a big list of stuff they're working on. You've heard some of that already, but this is what jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants.
So this is like, Elon Musk is very dangerous for America, screams Chuck Schumer. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he and his team are discovering that 2.1, just in 1 year, in 2024, an election year, 2.1 million non-citizen U.S. people were handed Social Security cards, which would enable them in all the blue states, I believe, to actually vote. And when that swings elections, obviously.
Oh, of course.
This is just this too, prima facie. This is factual. This is bad. This is really bad. You heard the audience like, "Ooh, right? This is bad."
Yeah.
It's as bad as it looks.
Are we gonna listen to?
Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro legal immigration.
Yes.
This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed us in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people. I have been from DC to Social Security offices to the border to track this down, and very good people have helped us along the way. I want to thank them.
Yeah.
This number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid. They'll give you an asylum case. You'll get an interview. Then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border. They do what's called a release from your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, notice to appear, which is to appear to judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people, okay? So what happens then? Once you're in the country and you got asylum through one of these pathways, and we mapped the whole thing out, you can apply for a work document. You file a 765, it's the work form. You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number.
What?
No interview. no ID.
This is worth like just reiterating.
insane?
It's not people
No
sometimes think that under
interview,
the Biden
no
administration that he was simply asleep at the switch. He wasn't asleep. They weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape.
Look, if I hadn't seen this myself, I'm not sure I'd have believed it. I went through it myself and mapped it. And Elon is right. This is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1 point.
They're buying votes. Max inclusion, max pay, right? Max everything. They're buying votes. And what Elon just said is that if they had gotten away with this much longer, we would have been a permanent one-party state because they just import the voters that they need. They run these rigged frosted glass elections. They put in like these crazy judges. That's where we were going. And that's why Chuck Schumer's so mad, because he's mad because Elon's putting a stop to that because he's exposing the fraud. Chuck Schumer's a traitor to this country.
He is, actually.
Everybody who's violently against Elon is violently for the destruction, the democratic, so-called authoritarian communist takeover of this country.
Of our democracy.
Our democracy. That's why we call this section our democracy, right? But this is astonishing. It's right out there. Yeah?
Yeah, it is. Sure is.
Unbelievable. So there's more to that. By the way, Matt Van Swell noted that, remember the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
In North Carolina?
The North Carolina Supreme Court has blocked a ruling demanding that 65,000 voters prove their identity after it was uncovered that some North Carolina voters actually voted overseas. I can't. I'm sorry. No, I will. Actually voted overseas without any form of identification. Allison Riggs, a Democrat, won her Supreme Court race by 734 votes. By the way, what? Just looking at her, it's just that there's something about the liberals in this country that just, they have a look, and I might be wrong, but she looks liberal to me. She looks like a liberal. She just looks like one. And I don't know what that means, but it means, you can sense it now. I can. She looks like an activist to me. She just does. And it's just how it is. But so in North Carolina, this is what it sounds like, right?
If the ruling stands, the State Board of Elections could throw out the contested votes unless voters take action to prove their identity. Part of Griffin's argument for getting rid of the ballots is because he says some people voted with incomplete voter registration. Democrats argue.
No, the reason that's an argument is that by state law in North Carolina, you have to prove identification. So when he says they're softening this, saying he claims some people had incomplete voter identification. No, they had zero. That's incomplete. And his claim is because it's the facts of the fact. That's what the fact is. They have these 65,000 votes came in principally in Democratic precincts that had no verification, no identification. And now they're saying, but Democrats argue.
Griffin is trying to change the rules after voters already made up their minds. But Griffin's colleagues sided with him. The ruling states those votes, as well as thousands of overseas and military voters, should be given 15 days to prove that they are eligible or have their ballots discarded. Now, if you take a look at the makeup of the court right now, there are 7 judges in all. You got 5 Republicans, 2 Democrats. So while a change may not impact the outcomes, Democrats say it could set a dangerous precedent on election stories. Laura Leslie has more.
A dangerous precedent on election
Griffin
stories.
challenged more than 60,000 votes from heavily Democratic counties, although some Republican voters were caught up in it too. He said most of them should not have been allowed to vote because their voter registration had missing or incomplete information in a state database. He also challenged the votes of thousands of military voters for not showing photo ID, even though under state law, they were not required to show photo ID to vote overseas. 2 of Griffin's Republican colleagues on the Court of Appeals agreed that the votes must be verified or thrown out. They ruled that the 60,000 voters should be given 15 days to prove that they're eligible to vote or have their ballots discarded. Meredith College political scientist David
So that was the thing, but then the North Carolina Supreme Court just stepped in and blocked that ruling, saying no. And by the way, she's stepping into the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court obviously has a conflict of interest in this particular case.
You would think that they wouldn't. How would they handle that it seems like they should recuse themselves from it.
You think they might, but you can't. This is just showing North Carolina is now lost. So this is the game that's being played. You can't play by the rules when your opponent is bringing a gun into the boxing ring. You know,
Yeah.
they just don't play by the rules. This is not playing by the rules. The rules. Either you live by rules or you don't. Okay, very simply.
Right.
Okay, if you live by the rules, then the simplest thing is you say, "What are the rules?" The rules say, "Oh, you have to have a voter
You have ID.
They mushed it up there a little bit. In North Carolina, you don't have to show a voter ID if you're overseas military, but if you're overseas military, by definition, you are in the military system.
Right. So they can verify.
So that you are verified, right?
Right.
But if there are military that you just claim I'm in the military over here, stateside, and not show ID, that also happened in this case. And right. So anyway, they're like, oh, but the military doesn't have to show their ID when they're overseas. Okay. Makes sense. That'd be like if you're a prisoner, you don't have to declare who you are. You're in the system, right? So at any rate, this is still happening. This is the world we live in right now.
Oh, that's awful.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, as a quick segment, FAFO time.
All right, let's go. Roski.
Nicholas John Roski.
Roski. Roe v. Wade. Nicholas John Roski, 29, pleaded guilty today to attempting to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh over Roe v. Wade ruling. He faces life in federal prison.
So, yep.
Wow. He's 29.
29 and yeah, facing some FAFO moments here.
Oof.
Remember this? This female fencer took a knee.
Oh.
Instead of competing against the biological male. That's her taking the knee there.
Female fencer takes knee instead of competing against biological male. U.S. fencing disqualifies and expels her from the college tournament, even though her male opponent played for the men's team last year before switching to women's. How is this legal?
That was April 2nd. This is April 8th.
Oh, boy. Attorney General Ken Paxton says, I'm announcing an investigation and issuing a civil investigative demand to USA Fencing over potential violations of Texas state law. USA Fencing recently disqualified a female competitor, Stephanie Turner, for bravely taking a knee instead of competing
against a male.
All
right, cool. So that's how it works out. How about this one?
This man was arrested for keying a Tesla. Hope it was worth acting like a pathetic child because you don't like Trump and Elon.
That's his wife. He's there. He's being very polite. He's like, my cuffs are a little tight, and I certainly hope it was worth it, big boy. But yep.
Really?
Yeah. What is with these people that they, again, I just think I can just see it on them, but maybe I'm just projecting. And then Mary Nuffall just reporting here that everybody should be aware of that. Finally, Bondi warned no one, not the foot soldiers, not the financiers, will escape justice because so they're digging deeper. They're looking at who's financing all of this stuff finally, Evie. So I'm really happy about that.
So you don't want to read that one?
No. And by the way, it brings up this because we're going to need to see arrests. We don't want to continue to expand the gulf of no one's been arrested. Okay. I really, really, really need to see this stuff starting to come through. We're going to need to see more people actually having some consequences. That would be great. By the way,
that's right.
I was about to close, but hold on, Evie, just talk to these people for a second because we have this is live and this is breaking right at the moment.
I'm going to have to pull this up. Going on here.
Yeah, it looks like Trump has just backed off on, oh my goodness gracious.
On the tariffs.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yeah, it looks like he's backed off on the tariffs here.
I saw that actually. Somebody put it in our comments, but I wasn't sure because I couldn't verify it.
They said stocks are exploding, but let's just give me 1 second as I pull this up. Wow. Yeah. Woo.
So
let's check this out. It says stocks soar as Trump backs down on tariffs for most countries. Not just soar. Let's look at this. 7.96%. By the way, if stocks were down 7%, they would have tripped a circuit breaker. Apparently, they're allowed to go up more than 7%. That doesn't trip any. Nobody needs a pause. Nobody needs a timeout for that. We'll just let that go. But this is an astonishing explosion.
Just since we've been here in the signal hour.
Look at this.
That's
Russell's up
pretty
7.8%. Dow up 6 points. This is huge, massive, 2,500 points. So I
Crude
don't
oil's
obviously haven't had a chance to look at this yet. Don't really know what this means.
Gold's
But
up.
if Trump is really backed off on this stuff, we should take a
Well,
look at this.
I thought I read that he backed off of some of the tariffs, but not China.
Yes, I think that's true.
He's pausing reciprocal tariffs on other countries. That's what it says.
Yeah, I just can't get over one more on this. It's like,
It's cool to see that gold's up, though. That makes me
yeah,
happy.
it was up even before this. So gold hasn't really budged on this news. In fact, it's down even just a slight tick.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that is astonishing. So, but if he hasn't backed off on China, that's the big deal.
Yeah.
Trump raises rate on China at 125%. So pauses reciprocal tariffs. That's not worth this explosion. That's crazy. That's insane. So that's just what wild markets we're in right now. And Microsoft is slowing or pausing some AI data center. Stocks soar as Trump backs down on tariffs for most countries. I don't understand this. Trump, I mean, obviously the trade battle with China is the number one battle out there. There's nobody even close on this.
They're huge.
Yeah.
They're monstrous.
A trade war with China is going to be very bad for the US dollar, for US treasuries. Those are going to, et cetera. So I would agree here, Salt Lakers, it's rigged. It's all rigged. This is crazy. The whole thing, yeah. Whole thing is fake. Indeed it is. And what do I think about large financial management companies like Fidelity or Schwab to manage individuals' finances? I do not think, I do not, very, very clear. Let me be very clear. I don't trust big firms at all because they have conflicts of interest that they don't disclose. They say they don't have them, but it's not true, right? They have a sell side, they have a buy side, they always have product they're trying to move. You're the customer. So next thing you know, you're getting glowing advice about some new fund you have to invest in, but they actually have a bunch of it sitting on the shelf, get stale. They're kind of hoping a customer walks off with it, and often that's you. That's how I feel about it. I only work with small independent people whose conflicts are zero and whose main interest is making sure that you do well. And that is their prime motivation. They're hard to come by, but you can find them. So at any rate, as we look through this, I think, Evie, very quickly, let me see if I got through what I needed to get through in this. I did. So with that, Evie, what do you got for us?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So first I'll read it. The river speaks. That's what it's called. You do not have to be endless, nor carve your name into the stone of the earth. You do not have to rise like the mountains or burn like the sun to prove your light. The river moves through the valley. Its voice is soft, unraveling, and it says, "Come as you are, tattered, trembling, or whole. There is room for you here." Look how the heron stands, still as a prayer, its feet kissing the water's edge. Look how the wind bends the reeds, not breaking them, but singing through their hollows. Whoever you are, the world offers itself to you, not as a burden, but as a hand held out, palms full of silt and sky. Let the soft animal of your body rest in the current. Let it drift where the river goes, past the willows, past the weight of yesterday, into the wide arms of now. And this poem was actually written by AI.
Ooh,
I asked it if there was something similar to Wild Geese, which is one of my favorites, thinking it was just gonna direct me towards people that had written just to give me some good ideas of who to look up.
Yep.
And that's what it gave me. I thought it was interesting, so I thought I'd share it.
Wow. Well, thanks for that. And as a reminder, everybody, that's our show for today. Adios, amigos. It's been good to be here with you.
It's always a pleasure. Have yourself a beautiful day.
Indeed.
Wherever you are.